In this section, we're going to look at UCS Central domain registration. And so what we want to understand is that to manage UCS Manager through UCS Central, you must register the Cisco UCS domains in Cisco UCS Central. You can register the UCS domain as part of a domain group or as an ungrouped domain. When you have a domain group, all the registered domain in that group can share common policies and other configurations. We can use an IP address, fully qualified domain name to register them. It really doesn't matter. Okay. Kind of note though is that while you're actually doing the registration, all active UCS Manager GUI sessions are terminated. But before registering UCS Central, all right, do a couple things. Configure an NTP server and the correct time zone in both UCS Manager and UCS Central. This will make certain that they're in sync. And if the time and date in UCS domain and UCS Central out of sync, the registration might fail. Also, of course, make sure you obtain the host name or IP address at UCS Central, and so that we can go ahead and we can do this. And so this is relatively easy. In this case, in our example, we see we have New York, LA, and Chicago, and we have our UCS Central. So what we need to do is we need to register Chicago initially here, one of the sites in Chicago. And with the newer versions, we can do the registration either direction. But now we're going to go ahead, we register it with UCS Central. Boom, we go ahead, we have a little certificate exchange so we can have a shared secret between them. All right. And then we go through and it's going to do an inventory, find out what information. So UCS Central is going to be querying the controller. And we do this for each of the sites, right? And so in this case, we have 6 UCS domains. So we'd have to go through the registration through that. As I'd mentioned before, one of the biggest challenges is time. Make sure you have your time set up ahead, well, of time. And so make sure that you set up your NTP. And if you do that, it works really smoothly. The majority of times I have to help somebody out, it's usually related to the time, okay? And so some things people ask are like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this deployment. Does UCS Central hijack or take over my domain? Well, no, it enables UCS Central, but doesn't give it bunches of power. There are a little bit of default policies, but the UCS Manager admin can actually control what are the domain-wide settings, and we'll see that later on in this course. UCS Central make change to domain upon request? Yes, but very little, all right? There's a domain group called auto registration policies because that's when we do the initial registration, what we're allowed to do. So the big part of this section is going to be a demo of how to register UCS Central domains, all right? So that UCS Manager and UCS Central can talk to each other. When I initially connect to UCS Central, as you would expect, I need to log in. I enter the username and password and I click sign in. Now when you open the first screen, we get this kind of initial dashboard made up of different widgets. It kind of looks like almost like a help page or something. And that's kind of how it's designed. Hey, what are you looking for? And so you can actually go under here and you can type things. You can search what you're looking for. You also have a section over here. What do you want to do? And if you select down on that and you want to know different things to do and you select those, it's really designed to give you a very favorable, very easy environment to use. You'll notice under getting started, there's a number of videos there that we can go through and watch some videos, we can explore. They give us just a tremendously easy interface for us to use. And so the first thing we're going to want to take a look at, as I mentioned, is we're going to want to look at the NTP settings. In the top left-hand corner, I click on the little gear icon, and I'm going to select I have a few different options there, so we can see system profiles, policies, etc. So we can see some of the different options there. I'm going to select system profile, and this will bring up some of my basic settings. By selecting the date and time icon, this is where I can specify my NTP servers. In this scenario, I can see I do have a configured NTP server. So I'm going to go ahead and click cancel. And it says, am I sure I want to cancel? And I'll say yes. I click on the little drop down menu and select domains. So I have a section there for domains to view all of the existing domains that I have. And I can see there's a number of domains that are associated with this. And so I'm able to see all of the domains. If I had a very long list of domains and I wanted to easily find them, I can click on the little magnifying glass and notice under each of these they now become searchable. And so I put NY and it immediately filters down. That is very useful for to be able to find a domain, and then from there we can drill down into a particular domain to see the settings and what's going on within that particular domain. So I'm able to see, I see a couple of little messages, a couple warnings. I see some icons on the left-hand side. I'm going to go down to servers. And when I select servers for this location, okay, it's located in New York, it shows me 8 blade servers, no rack mount servers, and no modular servers or M-series servers. And so that's pretty easy for us to locate basically where our domains are and basically how to find information about them. Another way to look at this is if I click on this little icon here, this is going to show me kind of a traditional UCS type environment where I can go ahead and it's my tree environment where I can say, okay, I want to look at stuff in the Americas. I can look at stuff in Dallas, right? And this gives me my more traditional tree type environment that we're used to being able to navigate. Some people prefer different ways to navigate the system. I tend to use the search a lot just because it's very easy. Now that we've explored the interface, we're going to go ahead and we're going to register a domain. Across the top here, I'm going to open up a new tab, all right, and so that I can connect to one of my UCS managers. When I connect to my UCS manager, of course, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have to launch the UCS manager and log in. I enter my username and password, and I get to the main screen. I'm going to select the admin tab, and I'm going to navigate to communication management. So I notice I have some options for getting there. One of my options is to filter, so I can immediately filter down to my communications management area. I notice underneath the management area it says UCS Central, or I can click over here and select UCS Central. And this is where I have the option to register with UCS Central. When I do this, I'm presented with a lot of options. But let's start off the top. First, I'm going to enter 2 things, the IP address and the shared secret. When I do that, I can see, okay, great. I put my shared secret in my username. Notice the policy resolution. This is saying, hey, what do we want to do? Do we want to use the local UCS manager policy or the global policy stored in UCS Central? And so that gives us some flexibility. Right now, we're going to leave everything at the default, and we're going to click OK. A warning message appears reminding me that when I do the registration, all GUI sessions, open GUI sessions, are going to terminate. I click Accept to continue. I can navigate under the FSM tab, and this is going to tell me the process that it goes through during the registration. So I can see it go through step by step, preparing certificate and going through the entire process as registration occurs. And we can see registration is still in progress. Registration has now completed, so I notice it says success across the top. If I go back to the UCS Central tab, I can see that, hey, great, here's the properties. Here currently, we notice lots of things are local, and the status is it's currently registered. If I navigate back under the admin tab, I notice there's a section called Time Zone Management. When I select that, this is where I can see whether NTP has been configured or not. We can see it's been configured, but a time zone has not been set. If I go back to UCS Central and look at our environment for UCS Central under the different domains, all right, and remember we have some different ways to view our domain. And what I'm looking for is something that says UCSM2, because that's the one we just registered. And I can see it is now here. So we have successfully registered this particular UCS Manager domain with UCS Central. If I go into this UCSM2, which is located in Dallas-Fort Worth, I can very easily see that I can see the different error message and what has occurred within this particular domain. I back up to the main menu for the overview. It shows me basically all the different domains that I have. We're now back on UCS Manager. We noticed that the time zone wasn't set, and so now what we can do is we can go into our settings that we looked at before under Communication Management, UCS Central. And so under here, I have some different options. One of them is time zone management. If I change that time zone management to global and click Save Changes, okay, and it says it has successfully modified them. Back in UCS Central, I go ahead and I'm going to change my time zone. In this case, I want to change my time zone. All right, I have some different options here for what I want to set it to. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and set it to, let's say, Central Time or Chicago time. So I'll go ahead and select Chicago. And I click Save in UCS Central. And then we're going to go back to UCS Manager. And we see that it has been updated in UCS Manager to Chicago time. So it's kind of nice for us to see a little bit of the interaction between them. So this winds down our domain registration. Very easy to register a UCS domain to UCS Central. And we'll be looking at much more advanced features in later sections. Thank you very much.